Reading from Dreams, Evolution, and Value Fulfillment by Jane Roberts, a Seth book, Volume 2. Alright, so this is session 940, February 3rd, 1982. I have not given you a multitude of methods or suggestions telling you how to decipher or understand your own dreams, though I have mentioned such topics often in this book and others. I have not given you complicated methods concerning out-of-body travel, and yet all of our books, by changing your attitudes, will help you bring about changes in yourselves that will automatically enhance such activities. They will begin to take their natural place within your world. No methods will help you otherwise. I do not want you to think that the answers to your questions lie prepackaged in the dream state either, relatively inaccessible except to those who possess unique talents or some secretive knowledge of the world of the occult. Many people, long before the time of printing or reading, learned to read nature very well, to observe the seasons, to feel out the seasons of the soul, in quotes. The answers, therefore, lie as close as your own back doorsteps, for at the thresholds of your beings, you automatically stand in the center of knowledge. You are never at the periphery of events. Regardless of your circumstances, your condition in life, your training, or your aptitudes, at your own threshold, you stand at the center of all realities, for at your center, all existences intersect. You are everywhere part of them, and they are of you. Each portion of the universe carries the knowledge of all other parts, and each point of a reality is that reality's center. You are then centered in the universe. Again, even your dreams and thoughts go out to help form new worlds. Such considerations should naturally spark within you far vaster and yet far more intimate insights into whose light the hazy rhetoric of prepackaged knowledge begins to disappear. As it does, so the speakers within each of you can rise to the surface of ordinary consciousness without being considered blabbermouths or madmen or women or fools, without having to distort the information simply to bring it to your attention. The speakers are those inner voices that first taught you physical languages. You could be equally correct in calling them the voices of electrons or the voices of the gods, for each is a representation of all that is, overflowing like a fountain both with knowledge and with love. When you stand at your physical doorstep, you look inward at an incredible, glowing, psychological venture. I am not using symbols in such statements, and hidden within them are important homey clues. Each spoon that you touch, each flower that you rearrange, each syllable that you speak, each room you attend to, automatically brings you in touch with the natural feeling for the universe. For each object, however homey or mundane, is alive with changes and comprehensions. I do not, therefore, want you to concentrate your efforts in memorizing methods of perceiving other realities, but to realize that such insights are everywhere within your grasp. If you understand that, then you will rearrange the organization of your own thoughts quite by yourself. You will begin to read your own thoughts as easily as you now read a book. It is far more important to read your own thoughts than it is to learn to read the thoughts of others. For when your own feelings are known to you, you easily see that all other feelings are also reflected in your own. When you look away from the world, you are looking at it more closely. When you read sentences like the last one, you are somewhat freeing your own minds and opening greater organizations. Your life is one dream that you are remembering. You are remembering it and creating it at once, watching it grow from the attention of your own love and knowledge. And as you seem to stand at its center, so you stand at the center of all of your dreams, which then spin themselves seemingly outward. Your physical universe began again then from a dreaming center. Session 941, February 8th, 1982. Rob points out here that he and Jane have started a new credo that they hope will be productive in their endeavors, such as things that she likes to do: writing, poetry, painting, the sessions, the mail, cooking, feeding our cats, and so forth. So they have this new credo and they are working on that, but things are about to change drastically for Jane. Seth comes through and he says, "You have lived in a world in which you believed you must struggle to survive, and so you have struggled. You have believed that the natural contours of nature were somehow antagonistic to your own existence, so that left in the hands of nature alone, you would lose your way. You have believed that in the very framework of your psychology. In your experiences, therefore, all of these things have largely proven true. Nothing taught that you were creatures. I've been trying to lead you into a new threshold of perception, where the old myths of evolution can be seen as outmoded, ancient, or forsaken castles amid a forest of beliefs. A forest that is indeed itself a magically formed one. The forest is the world of your imagination, surely, the imagination of your minds, and yet given force and power by the innate creativity that rises up from an inner world that represents much more truly the origins of man and beast. That world has been largely hidden by the camouflages shed by science and religion alike. But in your times, the landscape began to appear so dark and threatening, so forbidden and alien to your own desires, that its end seemed all the more inevitable and swift. I hope I've given you in this book a far more gallant and true picture that represents the origin of your life, structure and being and thought. The inner world of reality, the world of dreams, presents a model of existence in which new energy, vitality, and being is everywhere apparent, ready to come forward to form new transformations, new combinations of energy and desire. That inner psychological universe is a psychic gestalt, propelled, formed, sustained, or driven by value fulfillment, love, and desire, by the loving values that have no limits. The universe does not give up on itself or on any of its creatures. It is ruled by a different set of principles, a different set of values, and by inner cooperative exuberance. You may need some time before the old beliefs become less prominent and finally fall into their proper decay. A decay, incidentally, that does indeed have its own kind of majesty, energy, and beauty. But the inner, natural leanings of all of consciousness within the realms of your being now yearn for constructive change, clearer vision, to experience again their inherent sense of corporal spirituality, physical and psychic grace. They want to sense again the effortless motion that is their natural birthright. I hope that this book, to some extent or another, puts each of you in touch with your own inner psychological motion, your creative breath, so that you are invigorated and sense within your own minds and spirit a new promise, a new intent, and the exhilaration of earthly and spiritual strength. You dwell in a state of natural grace that is quite alive and vital, whether or not science decrees that consciousness possesses its own intent. Nature is supernatural all the while, of course. End of chapter, end of session, end of book. However, Seth adds, the sessions on magical approach do indeed represent the most quote-unquote natural truths about the nature and structure of your world, to the extent that you understand them and put them into practice. Now, Rob notes here, he says, after she came out of trance, Jane and I simply stared at each other. Dreams was done at last? We felt sad for several reasons. Even though Jane had remarked at the end of last Wednesday evening session that Seth was close to the end of his book, his actual completion of it still hit us. I congratulated her. I told her that she had created another fine work which would help many people. However, all of our reactions were much more subdued than they had ever been before when she had finished a book, either by herself or with Seth. No matter what other challenges we had created for ourselves over the last 2 years and 4 months, the knowledge that Dreams was in process had served as a comforting foundation in our lives. That had been true even during those long delays in its production. We regret that that support is gone, and we know that as the creation of Dreams begins to recede from our immediate perception, other challenges will inevitably move forward. Basically, things have come down to our hopes that Jane can keep going from day to day, and that our new credo will offer her support now that Seth and she are through with their book. You guys, Jane literally went into the hospital shortly after this. So, as per Jane's condition, she hasn't walked now from the time that this was written for 14 months and 22 days. She is still uncomfortable sitting, more so even, and I fear that her flesh will break down from the constant pressure. I've seen what I interpret as signs of that happening. He adds that Jane hasn't contacted a doctor. Her hearing and handwriting remain impaired. Her voice tremor and slowdown remain mild and intermittent. She's done well during sessions, and as I write these closing notes, I remind myself once again, as I often do, of those promises we made each other when we were married in 1954. Neither one of us would interfere with the other's creative approach to life, no matter what resulted from the actions we individually chose. Yet as the years passed, I still had to learn the obvious, that Jane's creative powers are inextricably a part of her whole approach to life, including her symptoms. How could it be otherwise? So right here, Rob notes about the magical approach, the book, which did get published, as I'm sure most of you know, and it is highly recommended by me and by them, of course. Rob is pointing out that he was hoping that Jane could finish the book. She had it well planned out, but that basically didn't end up happening. She was too inhibited by the subject matter, her physical symptoms, out of which the magical approach material had grown. And she was bothered because she had chosen to emulate the plotting way in which I put together the Seth books. That way didn't allow her the creative freedom to spontaneously plunge ahead. Eventually, I might try assembling such a work myself. Okay, so Rob remarried after Jane died, about I think 2 years after Jane's death. It was a hard thing, and he had help from a woman, and they ended up marrying, and she helped him to finish the magical approach, which ended up working out very well, and I know, and so does Rob, he states, that Jane would approve. Right here it shows February 10th. This is Jane's very last journal writing note before she went into the hospital. It says, quote from Jane, "Still annoying problems with fingers. Hoping to clear this up using, in part, Rob's new suggestion page credo for me. Typing with right hand. As I see it, even that can be utilized in magical approach. Again, Seth finished his book Monday," end quote. Very last journal entry by Jane. Rob adds a month later, Jane's journal entry was the last one, for on February 26th, 18 days after finishing her work for dreams, she was admitted to a local hospital for treatment of hearing difficulties, rheumatoid arthritis, and several other afflictions. Jane's and my hospital experiences have already become so involved that I've begun to think of describing them, and whatever they may develop into, in a series of chronologically ordered introductory essays for dreams. He adds, "The shocks have been great for us and are continuing. Without knowing anything, I know that we'll need much time in which to understand all of the deeply moving and conflicting emotional, psychic, and intellectual events connected with this development. Each day as I look at my lovely wife lying in her hospital bed after years of struggle, I feel the surge of those events, and I see them in Jane, and I feel them in her. In a way, our joint world came crashing down upon us on February 26th. Yet we continue to live amid the welter of our beliefs. Again and again in the Notes for Dreams, I've indicated how Jane and I tried to understand the probable reality we've created. With the hospital experience, I'm telling myself that if I can write about the storms of consciousness involving whole nations, I can certainly describe and reflect upon our own storms of consciousness. Jane and I must still have an unbelievable amount to learn, even though I think that in more basic terms, certain portions of each individual's reality are consciously unknowable. As Seth said 3 years ago, quote, "Consciousness attempts to grow toward its own ideal development, which also promotes the ideal development of all organizations in which it takes part," end quote. Rob adds, "What then are those quote-unquote ideal developments Jane and I are growing towards?" Questions like that must intrigue Seth even more than they do us. is dealing with us, but especially with Jane, of course, are as much learning experiences for him as they are for us. After all, here he is, engaged in a lifelong process with my wife, and just as dependent upon what he can get through her psyche as she is upon what she can get from him, and then let through to me and to others. What storms of consciousness as well as peaceful reaches must Seth travel through in order to help her even as much as he does? As far as he's concerned, those storms and reaches aren't physical, but instead consist of intensities of feeling, as they do for us too, basically. From her mystical orientation, Jane chooses what she wants to learn and use from what Seth has to offer. I think that if one isn't a mystic, such a state of being can only be approximated, such as there are obviously many variations possible, but the mystic chooses challenges that the rest of us can really understand only in the vaguest of terms. Jane's mystical creation of her universe is just her own. It always has been, and it always will be. She has expressed her way over and over again in her deceptively simple poetry, as well as in the sessions. That way is a fount of creativity I can only partially grasp. No matter that right now our joint reality seems quite opaque to me as Jane lies bedridden. I know that it appears much more translucent to Seth, and that he sees our great active potentials as we cannot at this time. Although Jane has had intimations from Seth in the hospital, she hasn't spoken for him, and I do not know whether she will or not. And she does not. So here we go. Little surprise. Juniper Jane! Juniper Jane! Oh, there we are. Is that real? Is that real? Oh, can you guys believe this? Oh, I'm a grandma. My son had a baby. Oh, look at this baby. You're gonna be famous. Yes.
So cute.
Doesn't even seem real.
I know.
Are you real? Oops. You want to be famous, Austin?
I want to be famous.
Yeah, I'm just going to put this up. Look at the camera where we can see you. I feel safe. There we go. There it is. There it is. Juniper Jane, I'm calling her. Juniper Jane. Yeah, because Jane died. Hey, little Juniper Jane. Oh, you're so cute. Juniper Jane. Look at this. Oh. That's really cute. Hey. Hey there. Say hello to the camera. Say hello, camera. Hi. This is Ode to Jane. Little Juniper Jane. I'm going to call her Juniper Jane. Let the camera see how cute you are. Let the camera see how cute you are. Look at this. Is this even real?